Hey, yeah, I don't really know what to say. I usually start with a rhythm. Like the timestamp stuff and say, what time it is. But it really doesn't matter. I don't think fucking anything matters. I don't know. I might be in a kind of a funky state of mind, big time, actually, because, I learned last night, like millions of us have, that the drummer of the Foo Fighters, a dude by the name of Taylor Hawkins, died suddenly yesterday in Bogota, Colombia, before a big show. I guess their Foo Fighters were on tour of South America and also involved with Lollapalooza, South America. And, well, I don't know, Foo Fighters are my favorite band of all time. And Taylor Hawkins has been, definitely one of my favorite drummers of all time, if not my favorite. But really, he's just such a key part of the Foos that it's like to know that band was solid and together and there and always rocking and delivering beats and jams and things that just connected with my brain and my soul made me feel like, yeah, things can always be all right, um, like a lot of what Dave Grohl sang about, right? You go through all these hardships and then you come out the other side and suddenly someone dies, right? So you're like, what the fuck, man? Who knows what the cause is? Could have been problems. Taylor had some problems back in the early 2000s, so who knows what it's going to be. But I feel terrible for the band. I feel terrible for Taylor's family. I feel terrible for, really all of the fans and the compatriots. I mean, I've been seeing like this incredible outpouring of respect and shock and, from everybody from, Axl Rose and Slash and, just all these stellar rock and roll artists from, decades and decades of our lives and, through Wolfie Van Halen, which was freaking cool. So anyway, I'm kind of absorbing all that. And, lately I've been yelling at the screen because, I'm just trying desperately to freaking connect with just the brain dead population of people that don't understand the freaking world we live in. I'm kind of, I don't know, maybe it's because the suddenness of, Taylor's passing and the fact that, you could be gone tomorrow. I guess I just don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck anymore about what you think or how I'm interpreting whatever because I don't know if anything really matters, right? Because I said this a while back, but it's just kind of underscores really everything. When nothing matters to you, you mean nothing. So what matters to me? Well, my family meant everything to me. My dream, my passion, my country, the fact that you could get along in the United States and move forward if you're actually talented like a guy by the name of Taylor Hawkins. I can totally relate to Taylor because, well, in a lot of ways, because I followed a similar trajectory just in terms of geography, not because I played drums in a fucking band, but, the dude's from Texas and then he wound up in California, which is part of my trajectory. And, every time I watch the Foos, and I've seen the Foos a bunch of times live, and watched them throughout the years, just all the time because it just, again, I love music. I love, just so much art and, poetry and I'm a filmmaker, and, it's what it's all about. But the Foos were special. The Foos were at a level in my brain that, were just above everybody in the influence of who I am. And, I'd see Taylor with his board shorts and rocking it out, and the dude could surf, and, just a cool guy, and just a bunch of great stuff. Came from like a punk background originally, and, he's my age, right? So it's like suddenly he's dead, and I'm looking around at this world, and, it's amazing how sometimes we never know who the members of the band are, right? Especially drummers, because they're kind of like behind the scenes. But a guy like Taylor, his sound, his power, his energy, his just infectious behavior, man, both on and off the stage. And, you just heard him. He just came through. I've just been listening to the Foos for the last 12 hours, and it's just like my soul is just exuding the Foo Fighters. And if you know the Foos, you know what I'm feeling, and you know what I'm hearing, and you know what I'm talking about. And, but I'm trying to, parse this into the kind of the nature of what's going on today, And so going back to what I've been doing with this truth bombing the kind, 20 years ago, or even when I launched, into this incredible journey to make the kind, do you think I could ever in a million years think that I'd be, broadcasting from a kitchen to try to convince you that I've got the truth that the whole world depends on in a way that, hasn't broken through to the tens of millions of people that need to understand this stuff. Do you think that I would really think that this would be my life, right? That I would have to actually bare my soul to you, a personality, in a way that you would see in between what? Cheerleaders dancing and like dudes dropping cliffs and all sorts of funky stuff that are just so far removed from what I'm trying to tell you. But I want you to freaking hopefully pay attention, but I don't know if it matters and I don't really give a fuck. But I'm going to try to get to the 1 in maybe 1,000 of you who actually understand what's at stake. Look, because Russia invaded Ukraine and because of a lot of things that are going on right now, a lot of people out there are like, oh my God, could this be the beginning of World War III? Well, you want to know the truth? I think we've been in World War III for 20 freaking years. I think you just don't know it. When you think about 9/11, you think about 2008, you think about what's going on with COVID, and now this, you know what? We've been at war with a force that you can't see. And what I've been trying to teach you all is to be able to see. I'm shedding light through the darkness to identify those that own the system that have waged war against you. It's the top 0.001% in global oligarchy and capital flows between countries like the Saudi freaking royal family, who's worth $1.2 trillion, and billionaires that basically just move things around, shuffle the deck, and create all sorts of illusions in a fictional freaking global economy that are fucking destroying you and me. But more importantly, not just from an economic standpoint, but they have the freaking audacity to be able to, quite frankly, overrun the law. Because the law doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything when you can actually create a Ponzi scheme criminal enterprise that ends up burying tens of millions of people in the courts that know what's going on, but the victims don't know what's going on. And then they come out the other side none the wiser. They either wind up in the streets, they either wind up, divorced, maybe commit suicide, maybe they find a job and they get back in the racket again. Who knows? I saw, from a friend of mine, he shared just a tidbit because he owns a real estate company in Phoenix, and he said houses made $50,000 more last year than people in Phoenix. Okay? Do you want to know why or how? You probably fucking don't, or most of you bozos who want to actually act as if you actually know something. You don't know shit. You don't know fucking shit, or nothing matters to you, because the bottom line is that, look, man, it's just this simple. The top 0.001% figured out a way to steal and loot from the Federal Reserve to pad their pockets in a fictional machine that makes it out like there's something real going on when it's not. If you took away the Federal Reserve and you took away quantitative easing, this country would have collapsed 13 years ago completely. We would have all gone through, the Great Depression Part 2, and there probably would have been a world war. But I think that the world war, again, between the global oligarchs, the top 0.001% that have been pissing on your head, telling you what's rain for the last 20 years, they've just decided, hey, you know what? We got away with it this long. Let's just take it to the next step. Hey, nukes, global war. If you know anything about World War I, what triggered World War I was much, less precarious, to be honest with you. And that led to the deaths of 40 million people in a population that was much, much smaller than the global population today. And we're in some really fucked up times. Saudi Arabia yesterday announced, they might start trading in the Chinese currency they want. It actually would make a lot of sense for them. It would make a lot of sense for both China and Saudi Arabia. Are Saudi Arabia and China the good guys, against our bad guys or good guys, or however this configures? Are you kidding me? But by the way, China, again, and I've mentioned this in a couple of videos before, China's, their real estate market's just as, metastasizes corruption and foul play as ours does. So they're a joke. But yet they've got massive manufacturing. And I think maybe with Russia, and Saudi Arabia, if it comes down to, honestly, the commodities of minerals, rare earth minerals, and of course, fossil fuels, hey, game over. Because again, the only reason the dollar has the standing that it does is because we've been trading in the Saudis have been trading in dollars ever since we went off the gold standard back in 1971. Did you know that, Mr. Smart Guy, who wants to act like I don't know what I'm talking about? Do you know what you're talking about? Do you have any idea what Bretton Woods is? Do you have any idea what fiat currency is? Do you have any idea who BlackRock is? Do you have any idea who Larry Fink is? Do you have any idea that Larry Fink just prognosticated to his freaking shareholders 2 days ago that he is waging economic war against Russia? How are you doing that, Larry? How are you doing that? Who elected you to be the guy who's going to wage war against anybody? What he's waged war, and this was the other part of it, is that globalism is dead, is what he said. Globalism is what props up the asset managers and the global oligarchs from around the world to basically piss on your head and tell you it's rain. Guess who one of his biggest clients is? Saudi freaking Arabia. Who caused 9/11? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, liberty and justice for all doesn't matter to you if somebody else fighting your wars. Upward mobility and the law doesn't matter to you unless you're in the crosshairs of it and you're getting booted out of your house when you didn't, stop paying your mortgage, like a woman that I know in Miami, whose husband was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and she was a, school teacher for 37 years, and they're stealing her home because they can, and because the judges aren't going to stop it. And what are you going to do about it? Why don't you turn your head? Why don't you walk down the street? Why don't you pretend like you got something to do that's better than trying to get on board a massive, massive populist movement to purge corruption? Look, you know what? To all of the rest of you where things actually do matter, I mentioned this the other day. What are we teaching our kids? Literally, what are we teaching our kids? If we're teaching our kids to thrive in the society that we have, you got to teach them to lie, steal, and cheat, because that's what we reward. You got to tell them, you got to teach them how to get inside the dress, up the dress of the master players that are, configuring this whole thing. And you better tell them to keep their mouth shut, be complicit, and play along while they railroad innocent people who think they live in a country that's liberty and justice for all. What a joke. What a freaking joke. And if we're going to have World War III, what's it going to be for? What, to prop up this thing further so they can destroy more of us? I mean, the whole thing is so stupid. It's retarded. It's retarded that we don't have a fucking clue what is the society that we actually live in and who's pulling the strings, because you don't pay attention. And again, why am I telling you all this stuff? Well, because we're not on Netflix and we're not on HBO, because Netflix and HBO are run by the people that I expose. And why do I say I instead of my team? Well, because I don't want to throw my team under the bus. I don't want to make them embarrassed of, the things that I'm doing and saying, because you know why? Because they're professionals, because I was a professional. But you know what? Being professional and polite in this absolute madness has got to end. That's why I've got the balls to actually call it out for what it is, because I'd like to hit it with an uppercut like Mike Tyson in 1985 and knock it the fuck out. But peacefully, of course, through a civil rights, movement that actually pushes the right people with the right stuff, with the right knowledge to reconfigure life, liberty, and justice for all, to create a country of, by, and for the people instead of, by, and for criminals. It's the corruption of our soul. It's the corruption of the universe, quite frankly. And we're not going to survive it, We're not going to survive it as a species if we keep letting it go. It's just the same old story as it's ever been. Do you know anything about the Middle Ages? Do you know anything about the pharaohs? Do you know anything about slavery? Do you know anything about everything that preceded what the United States did before we ended up having the revolution, before we ended up having, the Civil War and civil rights and, the D-Day and all the rest of it and landing on a moon? I mean, honestly, do you think that stuff just happened? Do you think that's just a page in a fucking book that didn't require sacrifice? It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to most of you because you're fucking brain dead. Am I a rocket scientist? Am I the smartest guy that's ever lived? No, man. I'm not even close to it, but this isn't rocket science. This is paint by the numbers. This is so easily understood if only you could find the time in between your freaking, whatever's got your attention, squirrel. That's what you are. You're a squirrel. A squirrel with no bandwidth. You don't have anything inside your soul that matters, and I apologize to those of you who do. I really do. Because I know there's so many of you out there that exist that matter like Taylor Hawkins did. Taylor Hawkins rocked my frickin' world for decades, man. That guy's going to be, it's going to be powerfully missed, as powerfully as he actually brought it every time he stepped on stage and did what he did. So, anyway. Yet another swing, probably another swing and a miss.